In this lesson, we're going to look at trigonometric ratios. That sounds challenging, but trig just means triangle. These ratios are going to have to do with right triangles only. And metric just means to measure. Now, you'll want a calculator that has these ratios on there. We are going to calculate some values by hand first, but sometimes we will need a calculator, and you see SIN, COS, and TAN on here. Those are the trig ratios or functions that we'll be looking at. Now, I said this has to do with right triangles, so let's draw off a right triangle. Now, this is a right triangle because it has a right angle in it. And we need to remember that this longest side, the side across from the right angle, no matter which way I turn this triangle, the one across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. Okay, let's go ahead and write down our trig ratios on the calculator. You saw SIN, COS, and TAN. Those are actually short for the words sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, so that's sine, cosine, and tangent, and each of these are just ratios of two sides of a right triangle. For example, the sine of an angle value is just going to be opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine of an angle is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. And the tangent of an angle is going to be opposite over adjacent. Okay, and let's say that we're looking at this angle here. We'll just call this angle A. So to find the sine of A, I take the opposite side and put it as a ratio over the hypotenuse. To find the cosine of A, I put the adjacent side over hypotenuse, and to find the tangent of A, I put the opposite side value or length over the adjacent. Now, what do I mean by opposite and adjacent? This is the hypotenuse all the time. Well, the side opposite A is not touching A, so this is the opposite side. The side touching A is the adjacent side. So you might want to pause this right here and either make a screenshot or write these down. You're going to want these values in front of you as you do homework or take quizzes or tests so that you don't have to memorize those. Now, it's probably not going to make a whole lot of sense about why we're doing this until we get to our next lesson where we apply this. We can use these functions or ratios to find missing pieces of a right triangle and to solve application problems. So bear with me on that. So what you'll need to have in front of you for your cheat is you need to know your ratios. Okay. Let's just go ahead and do an example. We're going to do a couple of examples without a calculator, and then I'm going to show you and some of the homework will tell you to do it without a calculator. Then I'm going to show you how to type these in correctly in the calculator. Okay, so first off, let's just draw a right triangle and put some numbers on there. And let's say that this will be given to us. Let's say that that's 50 degrees. Now, if that's 50 degrees, you might remember that that would have to be 40 degrees. Again, we'll be given values here. And let's say they give the length of each side to 1 decimal place. Let's say this is 62.0, 39.9, and let's say this is 47.5. And we'll just say these are in inches. Okay, now, if I want to find the sine of 50 degrees, I go up here to my little cheat. It's the opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, opposite. The side opposite of 50, the side opposite of 50 would be this side. This side is not touching 50, it is opposite. We'll also need the hypotenuse, and remember the hypotenuse is always going to be the longer side. So those two numbers will make up my ratio. And so we put the opposite 47.5 over 62.0. And in the homework, they'll have us round it to so many decimal places. So we just need to simplify by dividing that out. And I'm going to round that to 766. And again, you can see how we would use this in the next lesson. We just need to practice using our definitions of sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, let's look at another one here. Let's just go ahead and use the same one again. For example, let's say I want to find the tangent of 40 degrees. Okay, well, I'll look at my ratios. Tan is opposite over adjacent, and the side opposite 40 is going to be 39.9. Remember, this will always be the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longer side. And we do tangent, we don't use hypotenuse like we do here. It's just opposite over adjacent. So 39.9 is opposite of my angle. The one adjacent is the one touching it. And we'll divide that out. Oop, I think I typed that in wrong. 39.9 divided by 47.5, and I get 0.84. Let's draw another triangle and we'll find some more ratios. So let's say for this one, I have a side that's 80 feet, and let's say that's 47 feet, and of course it's going to have a right angle, and let's say this is 65 feet, and let's say this is 36 degrees here. Okay, let's find a ratio. Let's say they're asking us to find the, we haven't done cosine yet. Let's do cosine. The cosine of 36 degrees, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Remember, this is our hypotenuse here. So that's easy. We know it's the longest side. It's always across from the right angle. Now, it says adjacent. There's two sides to pick from here. 65 is adjacent because it is part of the angle. This side is opposite. It is not touching this angle here. So the adjacent would be 65 over 80, and we will divide that out. 65 divided by 80, and we get 0.8125. Now, if this is 36 degrees, remember, we can find that by subtracting from 90. 90 minus 36 is 54 degrees. And what I'd like you to do is I'm going to write down a couple of problems. You pause the video and then come back and see if you got them correctly. Let's say I wanted to find the sine of 54 degrees, and we'll do the tan of 54 degrees. Now, sine is the opposite side over hypotenuse. Well, we know the hypotenuse, that is not going to change. It's going to be this side here. Now, adjacent and opposite have to do with which angle you're looking at. Well, I'm looking at this angle, and I want the opposite. What is opposite from 54? Well, what's opposite is the side 65. 47 is touching 54, so it's adjacent. Opposite does not touch 54, so it's going to be 65 over 80. And that's 0.8125. You're like, oh, that's the same as that. It's a little fun trig fact that these two angles that add up to 90, you'll find that one's cosine is the other sine, but we're not in trig class, so we're just worried about finding ratios. The tan of 54 is opposite over adjacent. Well, for 54, we said the opposite was 65. Adjacent is the side touching it. And we'll get our decimal there. And we get 1 point, tan can be greater than 1, 3, 8, I'll just say 3. I'll just round it there. Now, if you don't have this calculator, for the continuation in the next video, I'm going to be using a calculator. I'm going to be using this one. If you have a different one, you may have to Google how to type in your sine, cosine, and tan, but you need a calculator with you. And again, if you don't have a scientific calculator, you can pull up the one on your computer or your phone.